All right. Oh, the Bush family, you know.
I tell you, the first family of music.
There he is, Sam Bush, live in the studio. Gibson Guitar. Sam, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks
Glad
for
to be here.
Thanks for accommodating us. I know you're in the middle of touring and everything else. And
Well, yeah, we came up to New York a couple days early, and yeah, gonna do just a little swing with the Sam Bush Band, B.B. King's to Westbury to Albany to Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So
nice.
we're lucking out weather-wise too.
Oh, absolutely. And then the season starts.
Yeah.
And the Bluegrass Festival's fast and furious. How many did you do in the summer? Did you do a lot?
Hard to say. I mean, you know, it kind of gets going. Actually, before any Bluegrass kind of festivals get going, we're going to play the New Orleans Jazz Festival.
Great.
Which, obviously, it's open to all sorts of musics. And then I think that's actually the weekend before.
That's late April, right?
Yes, and then the very last weekend in April is one down in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, the Merle Fest.
Right, Merle Fest.
So Merle Fest really
fantastic.
sort of kicks off the season, so to speak. Yeah, my only problem is being from Kentucky. I can't go to Louisville during the Kentucky Derby because I'll be at Merle Fest, which is its own beautiful thing to get to go to Churchill Downs.
Yeah, I have a friend in New Orleans, so when I go down to the Jazz Fest, he's like, you got to come the week I'm there because I'm at the Derby the next week.
Yeah,
you know,
no
he
kidding.
doesn't do the double dip.
Well, the Derby is kind of like Mardi Gras for Louisville.
That's right.
It is.
And I had a girlfriend from Ashland, so we'd go to Keeneland. You know, they'd have the race 2 days before the Derby.
Right.
Then you really get the full flavor.
Oh,
and being an Ohio guy, it's not too different. I'm from Ohio.
Yeah, you just got to go to Churchill Downs to get the mint julep.
That's
in
right.
the official Derby glass. You know?
So I've been there, done that. I don't remember much, but
well, that's true.
Yeah. So you were a child prodigy, but on the violin.
Well, I started on mandolin at age 11, and probably about age 13, picked up the fiddle. Grew up on a farm, in a household that encouraged music. You know, you always hear about people that, you know, get a real job, get a profession. Well, I grew up on the farm, and our parents wanted us to get off that farm if we could, really. They didn't want us to work as hard as they did. Music was encouraged. Grew up in a household that loved music, and growing up outside Bowling Green, Kentucky, it was only, say, 60 miles north of Nashville.
Right.
So I had the advantage of getting, you know, great reception on the Grand Ole Opry radio, as well as a lot of country music people in Nashville would have their own local TV shows. So in a way, it was like having, you know, teaching videos as you're learning to play, because really getting to watch the great players' fingers move unlocked loads of doors. So, started getting interested in fiddle, and then started going to fiddle contests. And then when I was 14, had the opportunity to go out to Weiser, Idaho, of all places, and where they hold what is called the National Fiddle Championships. And in the junior division, I think I came in 5th the first year. But the great part, and it's ironic, you know, you'd think around Kentucky there'd be all kinds of kid fiddlers and stuff, but no, that really wasn't the case. Just me and another guy that I knew of, and his name's Hoot Hester. He's now the staff fiddle player on the Grand Ole Opry.
Okay.
So we both continued, you know, to play music. And then I was able to go back age 15, 16, and 17 and won in those years. But the great part was going out to Idaho, meeting a bunch of other geeky kids who played the fiddle too.
Especially during a time period when it was rock and roll.
Yeah,
you know,
and I mean, and of course, and I went to a rural, you know, county high school, and it always amazed me how all us kids were farm kids, but nobody wanted to be a hillbilly, you know. So, so actually, I would play electric guitar, and like somewhere along the line picked up electric guitar, and so I would play electric guitar in high school rock bands, and it was always funny to me that, you know, in the rock band, I'd be the only guy old enough to drive. But in the bluegrass band, I was by far, you know, the youngest guy in the group. So and that, as well as, you know, playing drums in the marching band and bass violin in the school orchestra. So I was just, you know, anything musical, I was into it, singing in the chorus, whatever I could do.
And that's fantastic. When did you realize that professionally the mandolin was going to be it for you?
Well, it has always been kind of my first love, even though I love playing the fiddle and enjoy it and feel competent on it. But especially as I was playing in bands, you know, if you ever heard Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music, he had a certain way to play rhythm that we call it the rhythm chop. Right. And so the mandolin can be more like the snare drum of bluegrass. And so I've always just, more than anything, I love playing rhythm. And so as I was learning to sing and the trio singing and singing harmony, that the mandolin was the most fun within the ensemble for me because I always got to play rhythm, you know. And
Keep time,
yeah.
keep everyone locked in on you.
Well, and that's the great thing about bluegrass style music, that everyone in the group is responsible for timing. It's not, you know, it's not like the drummer sets time because generally there's no drums.
Right.
Now in my band there is drums, and we have a person, Chris Brown is his name, and he's one of the many Chris Browns in the world.
Oh yeah, that kid, Chris Brown.
Yeah, I mean there's you know, there's football players named Chris Brown. There's R&B artists, and so. But he's very sensitive to what we're trying to do, and well, I mean, he used to play with Maynard Ferguson for years, and so he's well-rounded. He can, you know, do any rock style we need, but also when it's a bluegrass style tune, he's very sensitive to, you know, not covering up instruments with the sounds of crashes.
Yeah, too many fills.
Well, yeah.
Lay off the fills,
he's
guys.
He's totally tasteful.
Let the acoustic instruments breathe.
But yeah, but in bluegrass style playing, I mean, even when you're playing a solo, you are responsible for the timing as well. And so I think it's just something that we grow up learning to do, and it gets to be second nature that you're keeping time no matter what you do.
And I think, you know, people who may be not that into bluegrass or don't know the genre of music, it's fast and furious.
It is fast and furious.
And you really need, I mean,
it can be
precision. No, I mean, look, I mean, you watch it, you see it live. I think to really see it live, you can listen to it on record, but to see bluegrass live is a whole different experience. It's like a jam band experience. It's really a communal experience.
It really can be. And then the kind we play, which I was in a band called Newgrass Revival for 18 years, and we were kind of like one of the first to take, not the first necessarily, but one of the first to take bluegrass style instruments and make them in a jam band situation where you do extended solos. And that came because we were influenced by many types of music, you know, and the Allman Brothers, but John Coltrane, or even the way the Cream would improvise and go on and let the solos take a long time. I mean, so, you know, I was born in '52, so I feel very fortunate that I became so in love with music in the '60s.
Yeah, absolutely.
When there were so many types of great music, you know, coming to fruition at that time.
I guess that probably allowed for the experimentation too within the genre, you know. And then you have younger guys, you know, who followed you, you know, the Nickel Creeks and the, you know, the String Cheese guys and et cetera.
I'm friends with all those guys.
You played on all those records, Larry Keel Experience.
Chris Thiele, who, you know, the mandolin player.
Amazing, yeah.
I actually produced his second record.
Oh, you did?
Called Stealing Second, I guess.
I didn't
all
know
baseball kind of themes. Chris
Right.
is a huge baseball fan as well, and I love him to death, and I admire his playing tremendously.
And, you know, they're keeping the flame alive. You guys have kind of took it to a place that got our generation, you know, the real rock and roll crowd into it, and appreciative of American music forms.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
mean, and
Jerry Garcia did with Grissom, you know, Grissman.
Right, David Grissman and I we have a duet record out called.
Right.
We didn't call it Sam and Dave. That name was taken, but we did call it Sam and David. Hold on, we're strumming. I'm not kidding. But yeah, check it out sometime. It's on David's label, acoustic disc.
Great.
And but yeah, David. I met David 1965 at one of the first. I was 13 and. One of the first, arguably the first bluegrass festival, 3-day festival in Roanoke, Virginia, or outside Roanoke in Fincastle, Virginia. And I met people that were still friends to this day, like Tony Trischka and Andy Statman, David Grissman.
Andy from New York.
Yeah, and really, but yeah, I met the Northerners who came down, and Southerners, and boy, we found out these Northern cats were about to clean our clocks. They were so good playing, you know, and so. We learned a lot from our northern buddies, and Peter Rowan at that time was playing guitar with Bill Monroe. So young Peter Rowan was Bill Monroe's guitar player, and but met David, and he was the first guy to ever let me play a Gibson F5 model. And I was playing in a jam session, and Grissman comes by and just leaned down and said, "Hey man, play a good one," and he dropped. What I would later learn is, you know, one of the greatest mandolins you'd ever play, in 1923 Lloyd Lohr signed Gibson F5. And so David's he's been my pal.
That's amazing. Good story. Who was your first musical mentor? Somebody who really took you under their wing and said, "This is the path, my son."
I don't know if anybody ever really did that, but the one mandolin player, well, I tell you what, fiddle-wise, Byron Berline.
Wow.
And a lot of rock and rollers would have probably first heard of Byron because he played the fiddle on the Rolling Stones' Country Honk on Let It Bleed, the acoustic version of Honky Tonk Women. And I met him when I went out to Weiser, Idaho, and I had been admiring his playing, and that was maybe one of the best things that ever happened to me, meeting Byron, and once again, watching him play and just, how do you do it? How do you do this stuff? Mandolin speaking, my mandolin mentor and hero, and the guy that used to try to fill my head with so many ideas that I couldn't remember anything, was Jethro Burns from Homer and Jethro. And not a lot of people knew when Homer and Jethro were together, and you see them on TV and they're doing funny songs.
Hee-haw and all that.
Yeah, they're doing funny songs and making mistakes on purpose and doing this and that they were master musicians. Homer Haynes was this awesome rhythm guitar player in the style of Django Reinhardt, and Jethro was this fantastic jazz style mandolin player. And so once Jethro's partner Homer died, young mandolin players like me and David Grisman, we started to sing Jethro's praises, and people started finding out just how great he was on the mandolin. And so he would go around, and he would still tell jokes on stage and stuff, but then he'd play these beautiful solo pieces.
Right.
And so Jethro used to really, I never actually took lessons from Jethro, but I would go over to his house and he'd just show me things. But I mean, the first time I went over there, I didn't even own a tape recorder, or I didn't have a little portable tape recorder then, so it was probably 1973. And he took me to his basement, and I'm surrounded by his beautiful Gibson mandolins and everything's, so I'm just in awe. And he filled my head so full of licks that I couldn't remember anything. I think that was his goal. But
that's great.
I didn't even know if he liked me or not until he told my wife that he did. He's one of them guys, if he liked you, he's going to butt you around mercilessly.
Right.
You're going to get it.
Oh, that's great. You got to pick this up through osmosis, man. No lessons. Talk about Emmylou. You played with so many people. I don't even know where to begin. Maybe we should approach it this way. What are some of your fondest musical memories, like in the '70s, when it seemed to be really coalescing, and the music scene was growing for you, and the new grass was hitting it on all cylinders?
Well, in the '70s was an interesting time. One fond musical memory was that one of the most unlikely things in the world happened, that we, being Newgrass Revival, and we didn't even put pickups on our instruments yet. We found ourselves in 1973 as the opening act for Leon Russell and the Shelter People.
Wow.
And he was drawing about 25,000 people a night then.
Yeah.
And in the first few shows, it was just terrifying. I mean, we
playing arenas like
we
the Garden.
literally went, football fields, and we literally went from playing 3 weeks at Arnie's Pizza King in Lafayette, Indiana, to next thing we knew, a friend of ours just recommended us for the job, and then, I mean, we literally got home off the road at 4 a.m. one day, and at 4 p.m. later that day, we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in Leon Russell's house. It just happened like this, and so we were it was a once in a lifetime thing where the opening act, we were actually employed by him and his manager, Denny Cordell, going around the country in a private plane, staying where they stayed, and 2.5 months, it was just awesome. The great Carl Radel on the bass.
Wow.
And, it was just getting to hear Carl Radel for 2.5 months.
Oh my God.
And Leon was just so on his game, it was just amazing. Don Preston on guitar, Chuck Blackwell on drums. So getting to do that was a real, it was just an insane time, because it was rock and roll hysteria.
Right.
And we kept wondering, what in the hell are we doing here? How did this happen? And then, but thinking of the '70s, like the first time we went to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival was 1975, the second year they ever had it.
Right.
And we were the first band that wasn't just local to Colorado that they hired, and it was as if once we got to Telluride and we started playing, we realized that the wide open spaces seemed to relate to the wide open points of view of these people, and that they were up for anything. And as a result, I just played this past summer, played my 35th consecutive Telluride.
Wow.
Which is amazing because it's amazing a festival can go on.
Sure.
You know? I mean, festivals come and go, and it's a real commitment to keep that thing going. So getting to play a Telluride, and then the many jams over the years of playing at Telluride, and the musical fun I've had, and getting and seeing all the different great bands they've had. I mean, one year Paco de Lucia was playing, had dancers and horns, and then the next year, and they call it a Bluegrass festival, but it's really wide open to any kind of music.
Like the Jazz Fest in New Orleans.
It really is,
yeah.
and like one year Little Feat played, and that
Sure.
they tore the roof off the place. The band played it. This past year, Elvis Costello brought an acoustic band with him, and featured Jerry Douglas on dobro, and also this was one of the larger stretches. David Byrne played on Telluride this year, so it's hard keeping all the costumes totally white in that kind of dust. I think everything was white, all the instruments, everything. So really, and looking back, you know, one of the greatest times I ever had was, you know, playing in Telluride, maybe with Doc Watson. And we still got Doc, and he still plays great.
You know, I saw him at Lincoln Center a couple of years ago, and he played outdoor at one of the free shows that they have in the summer, and it was, you know, you just got tingles. I'm getting tingles thinking about how good he was.
And Doc and Merle together was so great.
I can only imagine when Merle was around. It was like when I saw Billy Joe Shaver play with his son, you know, a little venue here in New York a couple of years back.
Oh, Doc was Merle's biggest fan, and but then Doc and Merle would take me on the road with them sometimes too.
Wow.
So it was
What an education, musical education.
Well,
have you thought about writing a book?
I have, but I'd really prefer to keep all my friends. It's better for us to just have a beer and talk about this stuff.
Well, point well taken. I like that.
Well, the last record that I made called Lapse in Seven, we did a music video, and it was a duet with Emmylou Harris, a Julie Miller song called "The River's Gonna Run."
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And you know, let's face it, you know, Emmylou brings a pretty factor to the video, and her great vocals don't hurt either.
Yeah.
And so we got played on, you know, some of the country music video channels, but really I don't find that many video channels anymore, and I think more people are turning to the web for more information. So this seemed like a more likely place to try to peddle our wares this time.
Right. And they showed, I mean, this article really showed the bump that you got from these 19 episodes. Is it 19 episodes you've shot?
I think 18 or 19.
And really, and it showed graphics, just showed like, wow, that, you know, here is empirical data that you can say backs up, you know, the results of what you've done.
Well, and once again, because I couldn't tour, we just wanted to keep the word out and let people know we got a CD and check it out and see if you like it.
And let you know that you're an affable guy.
Hey.
A good storyteller, man.
It's, you know, always interesting seeing yourself on a played back, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't happen as much as it used to, but especially in the 70s, I would have dreams, and sometimes I would find myself later in the same situation, exactly
as you
the
dreamt
dream.
it.
And one time I dreamt that I was recording in a session. What I've recorded many times with John Hartford, and but I dreamt that I was playing in a session with John Hartford, Rodney Dillard on guitar of the Dillards, Douglas Dillard on banjo, and a guy playing a cello for a bass, smoking sort of a Sherlock Holmes pipe. And
that was Derek Smalls from Spinal Tap.
Well. And so about 3 months later, I get a call. And by the way, Douglas Dillard had long left the Dillards.
Right.
So I'd never seen, I knew both Rodney and Douglas, but I'd never seen the two of them in the same room together. Dillards had a different banjo player. So cut to the chase, 3 months later, I get a call to play on, John Hartford and Rodney and Douglas are going to make a record called Dillard, Hartford, and Dillard.
Right.
So they did. So I got the call to come down and play on a couple tunes. Well, I'm in the studio and I'm playing, and all of a sudden I look up and realize I'm sitting in exactly the spot I dreamt it, and there is a guy, in fact, playing the bass, playing a cello for a bass with that pipe, and he was the Dillard's bass player, Jeff Gilson.
Oh my God!
And
mind expanding experience.
It was just a real. I mean, it wasn't freaky or anything. But on the other hand, you can't go worrying about dreams that might come true because it's nowadays.
Especially good ones.
I seem to have dreams nowadays where I'm always trying to get to the gig. I assume that means I still want to do it.
That's right. That's right.
Because I do.
But it's a little bit more effort. No, not really. Not at all. You love to play, man.
The older I get, the more I like to play.
Yeah.
I feel fortunate and that the hands still work and.
Right. Well, Sam, I think we want to hear some music. How's that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
All right.
Well, let's hope it sounds wonderful.
It will. I'm sure it will.
Anyway, just a simple little melody, the Old North Woods. The Old North Woods.